Ladies and gentlemen, certainly, here's an intro to your motivational speech in the calm, wise, and reflective style of Shi Heng Yi. There is a simple truth that often goes unnoticed in our fast-moving world. The way others treat you is often a reflection of how you treat yourself. Many people wonder, why don't others respect me? Why do they ignore me? Why am I always overlooked? But rarely do they stop and look within. Today, I want to guide you to one powerful shift, one action. One decision, one commitment. Do this just once, and you will see, people will begin to respond to you differently, not because they have changed, but because you have changed. Like a ripple in still water, the energy you carry flows outward. Respect, presence, and confidence are not demanded. They are projected and then naturally reflected by the world around you. So take a breath, empty your mind, and listen closely. Self-respect is not something others give to you. It is something you cultivate from within, through your actions, thoughts, and choices on a daily basis. It begins with how you speak to yourself, how you hold yourself, how you carry yourself in silence when no one is watching. Many people seek external validation, hoping that by being nice, agreeable, or pleasing, others will treat them well. But this often leads to frustration, because deep inside, they feel unseen, unheard, and unvalued. The problem is not in how others perceive them. The problem lies in how little value they place on themselves. When you begin to respect yourself, everything changes. You no longer tolerate disrespect, not because you become aggressive, but because your energy, your demeanor, your presence makes it clear that you are not available for anything less than what aligns with your values. Self-respect shows in the way you take care of your body, your time, and your environment. It shows in the way you say no to things that drain your energy, even if saying no makes others uncomfortable. It's not about arrogance. It's not about thinking you're better than others. It's about recognizing your worth and protecting it with discipline and consistency. Self-respect is practiced when you keep your promises to yourself. When you wake up on time even though you're tired, when you train your body instead of making excuses, when you choose nourishment over indulgence, you are building a silent power within. That power doesn't need to be spoken. It becomes visible in your walk, your posture, your tone. People sense it, they feel it, and they begin to treat you differently, not because they decided to, but because your energy no longer matches the energy of being overlooked or mistreated. The world treats you according to the standards you set. When you allow disrespect, you're signaling that it's acceptable, but when you raise your standard even quietly, people begin to adjust. Some may resist, some may leave, but those who remain and those who come after will respond to your new level. This shift doesn't require a speech or an announcement. It simply requires action. You start by respecting your time. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't value your words. You let go of the need to be understood by everyone, and in that silence, your self-respect grows stronger. There is a different energy in someone who respects themselves. They speak less, listen more, and act deliberately. They are not reactive. They are not seeking approval. They are centered, and in a world full of noise, that centeredness becomes magnetic. Others begin to notice. They may not even understand what has changed, but they will treat you with more care, more space, more attention. This is not manipulation. It is reflection. What you carry inside, the world mirrors back. Many people think that self-respect is a mindset, but it's more than that. It's a behavior. You cannot think your way into self-respect. You must act your way into it. Each small decision matters. Every time you avoid gossip, every time you walk away from drama, every time you invest in your growth instead of wasting time, you are telling yourself that you matter, and that message becomes part of your identity. This identity begins to express itself without words. When you walk into a room, your presence communicates something before you even speak. It tells people what you tolerate, what you expect, and what you stand for. The way you treat yourself sets the blueprint for how others will treat you. If you ignore your own needs, others will do the same. If you honor your truth, even when it's inconvenient, others will begin to respect your strength. This is the power of self-respect. Clear boundaries are one of the most powerful and underrated forms of self-expression. They are not walls to keep people out, but lines that define how you expect to be treated. Boundaries silently communicate your self-worth, your values, and your priorities without the need for argument or explanation. People often assume that if they remain kind, patient, and agreeable, they will automatically receive kindness in return. But the truth is, in the absence of boundaries, kindness can be mistaken for weakness. When you do not define how others are allowed to treat you, they will define it for you. Having clear boundaries does not require anger or confrontation. It requires clarity and consistency. Boundaries are not something you shout, but something you live. When you say no without guilt, when you step away from situations that exhaust you, when you stop over-explaining your decisions, you are establishing silent rules for how others must engage with you. These actions teach people what you will and will not allow, and over time, they begin to adjust their behavior accordingly. You don't need to convince anyone. Your actions do all the speaking. Most people are not used to seeing clear boundaries. In a world that constantly asks for more of your time, your attention, your energy, those who set limits often stand out. But that's the point. When you draw a line, you protect your space, and only those who respect it will stay. This may feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent most of your life people-pleasing. You might fear being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. But as you continue to honor your boundaries, you'll begin to see the shift. The people who once took advantage of your silence will begin to feel the weight of your absence. The ones who truly value you will learn to adapt to your standard. Boundaries also teach you who you are. Every time you say no to what doesn't align, you are saying yes to your peace, your purpose, and your growth. This clarity gives your life structure and direction. It removes the noise and chaos that come from being too available, too agreeable, or too afraid to disappoint others. Boundaries are not just for others, they are for you. They remind you where your energy ends and where someone else's begins. They protect your mental, emotional, and physical space so that you can operate from a place of strength. You don't need to explain your boundaries. The more you try to justify them, the weaker they appear. Simply act on them with confidence. If someone is constantly draining you with negativity, distance yourself. If someone disrespects your time, stop giving them unlimited access. If someone crosses a line more than once, remove the line and build a gate. These choices may not please everyone, but they will preserve your dignity. Over time, those around you will either rise to meet your standard or slowly fade away, and that is not a loss, it is alignment. The power of boundaries lies in their quiet influence. You won't need to demand respect because you will naturally receive it. You won't need to argue for your space because your energy will command it. When you respect your own boundaries, the world begins to follow your lead. People take note of what you allow, what you accept, and what you refuse to tolerate. They see the lines you draw and recognize the self-awareness and strength behind them. Boundaries are the invisible architecture of self-respect. They shape your relationships, your environment, and your future. They keep you rooted in your values and connected to your truth. Without them, you become a passenger in your own life, constantly reacting to the demands of others. With them, you take the driver's seat, navigating with clarity, purpose, and quiet strength. Every time you draw a boundary, you send a message, not just to others, but to yourself, that your time, your energy, and your peace are not up for negotiation. There is a silent language that speaks louder than words, and it's always being read by the people around you. Your posture, your presence, and even your silence carry messages about who you are, what you believe, and how you expect to be treated. Long before you open your mouth, your body and energy are already communicating on your behalf. Many people focus on what they say, trying to convince others of their worth, but they overlook the unspoken signals they send every moment through how they move, how they sit, how they walk, and how they show up. Posture is not just physical, it is psychological. A slouched body signals defeat, low confidence, and insecurity. A straight, grounded posture communicates alertness, calm strength, and presence. You don't have to puff your chest or try to dominate a room, but you must hold yourself in a way that honors your own value. Your spine, your shoulders, your eyes. All these things speak volumes about how you feel about yourself. And people notice. Without a word, they begin to adjust how they speak to you, how close they get to you, and what kind of energy they bring toward you. Presence is the ability to be grounded and fully in the moment. In a world full of distraction and fragmented attention, presence is rare and powerful. When you are present, you are not easily pulled into drama or small talk. You are listening with intention, observing with clarity, and responding instead of reacting. This calm, composed presence does not go unnoticed. People are drawn to it. They lean in, they listen more carefully, and they treat you with more seriousness. You don't need to raise your voice to command attention. Presence is what gives weight to your words when you finally do speak. Silence, when used with awareness, becomes a tool of power. Not every situation requires a response. Not every insult deserves a reply. When you remain silent in moments where others expect a reaction, it creates tension, and in that silence, people begin to reflect. Silence is not weakness, it is choice. It says you do not need to engage in every conflict to prove your strength. You are not seeking validation, and you are not threatened by discomfort. That stillness, that ability to stay centered when others are emotional or chaotic, creates a different kind of respect. The combination of posture, presence, and silence forms an aura that people respond to instinctively. You do not need to explain yourself because the way you carry yourself speaks your truth. This is not something that requires perfection. It requires awareness and discipline, small changes in how you sit, how you walk into a room, how you pause before speaking. They add up. Over time, they create a quiet authority that others sense without even understanding why. Many try to gain respect through words, through arguing, through convincing, but respect earned through energy is deeper and longer lasting. It is not dependent on how well you speak or how many people agree with you. It comes from alignment. When your body, your mind, and your presence are in harmony, this alignment radiates, it draws boundaries without force. It demands nothing, yet receives everything. People begin to notice your standards, your control, your clarity, and they act differently around you, not because you told them to, but because your presence does not allow for anything less. Practicing this kind of presence is a daily discipline. It comes from self-awareness, breath control, and a commitment to living with intention. It's about slowing down, observing, and remembering that how you move and how you show up is always being read. When you master the ability to let your silence speak, your posture lead, and your presence ground you, others feel that shift. You no longer need to prove anything. You simply are. And that is more than enough to shift the way the world responds to you. Detachment from validation is one of the most liberating shifts a person can make. From a young age, many are conditioned to seek approval from parents, teachers, friends, and later from society. This creates a subtle but powerful dependency on how others perceive us. We learn to shape our behavior, our words, even our dreams, to gain acceptance and avoid rejection. The need for validation becomes a silent driver behind many decisions. But what few realize is that as long as this need exists, true personal power remains out of reach. You are not acting from freedom, you are reacting from fear. Validation is seductive because it feels good in the moment. Praise, attention, and admiration offer a temporary high, but it is short-lived and unstable because it depends on factors outside of your control. One day you're appreciated, the next you're criticized. One moment you're celebrated, the next you're forgotten. Basing your identity on this unstable currency creates inner chaos. It makes you mold yourself into what others expect, even if it conflicts with your truth. The more you chase validation, the more you abandon yourself. Detachment does not mean you stop caring about people or become emotionally numb. It means you no longer rely on external reactions to define your worth. It is the practice of being grounded in who you are, regardless of who claps for you. It's about being rooted in your values, not in popularity. This detachment brings clarity. You begin to distinguish between what you truly want and what you've been conditioned to want. You stop asking, will they like this, and start asking, is this true to me? That shift changes everything. When you stop needing validation, your choices become bolder. You take risks not because they're safe, but because they align with your inner compass. You speak your truth without checking who's listening. You set boundaries without fearing backlash. You stop apologizing for your existence. This creates a powerful energy around you, one of self-possession, confidence, and calm authority. People are drawn to it because it's rare. Most people are still trapped in the loop of seeking approval, so when they encounter someone who is not, it disrupts their assumptions and earns their respect. Detachment also sharpens your intuition. Without the noise of seeking praise or fearing criticism, you can hear your own inner voice more clearly. That voice becomes your guide. It tells you when to move forward, when to pause, when to walk away. It gives you peace in the midst of uncertainty because your peace is no longer tied to how others respond. You stop living a performance and you start living your purpose. And when you live from that place, people notice. They may not understand what it is, but they will treat you differently. They will approach you with more care, more authenticity, and often more admiration. Not because you chased it, but because you didn't. The paradox of detachment is that when you stop needing validation, you often receive more genuine respect. But by then, you don't need it anymore. It becomes a byproduct, not a goal. This is true power, the kind that doesn't require applause to feel real. The kind that remains stable, no matter who is watching. The kind that speaks in silence and moves without needing permission. Detachment is a discipline. It requires awareness every day. It requires facing discomfort, especially when you're misunderstood, ignored, or criticized. But with each moment you choose your truth over approval, you grow stronger. You stop being a mirror, reflecting what others want to see, and become a light, shining from within. That light draws the right people, repels the wrong ones, and ultimately transforms how the world engages with you. Not because you tried to change them, but because you changed your relationship with yourself. One act of self-commitment has the potential to change the way people see you, speak to you, and interact with you. Commitment to yourself means choosing something and following through, not for applause or recognition, but because you made a decision that reflects your values. In a world full of distractions and constant noise, the act of staying true to one personal promise stands out. It sends a message to yourself that you are worthy of discipline, attention, and care, and when you treat yourself with that kind of seriousness, others begin to reflect it back. People watch how you show up for yourself. They may not say it, but they observe your habits, your consistency, your follow-through. When they see you committing to your goals, whether big or small, it builds quiet respect. If you say you're going to wake up early and train, and you actually do it, that behavior begins to build a different energy around you. If you say you're going to cut off negativity, and you stand by that, people notice. They begin to believe that your words carry weight. That belief shifts how they interact with you. You are no longer seen as someone who simply talks. You are seen as someone who acts, someone who follows through, someone who leads from within. Self-commitment is the foundation of trust, not just with others but within yourself. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken your inner integrity. You begin to doubt your own word. But every time you follow through, even in private, you reinforce strength, discipline, and alignment. And that inner alignment shows in how you carry yourself. Your tone becomes more grounded, your decisions more firm, your presence more respected. There is no need to seek validation because your actions become your validation. This becomes a silent, powerful force. The moment you commit to something, whether it's your health, your spiritual growth, your focus, or your boundaries, something inside you changes. You begin to protect your energy more. You begin to structure your days differently. You begin to let go of distractions that no longer serve you. People who used to waste your time will find that you are no longer available in the same way. Not because you announced anything, but because your new level of commitment makes certain interactions feel out of place. People treat you based on what you tolerate. When your tolerance shifts, so does their behavior. This kind of commitment requires sacrifice. It's not comfortable. You will have to give up old patterns, old relationships, and sometimes even old identities. But what you gain in return is clarity. You begin to attract people who respect what you respect. You create a new environment, one that is shaped by your inner discipline rather than outside expectations. The people who surround you change, not always immediately, but gradually, as they recognize that you are living from a place of purpose. One act of self-commitment is not about changing your entire life overnight. It's about choosing one thing and following through, no matter how you feel, no matter who notices. That choice becomes a symbol. It becomes a daily reminder of your strength, and every time you honor it, your self-respect deepens. Others begin to recognize that you are not easily swayed, not easily distracted, and not easily influenced. That steadiness earns a different level of regard. It could be waking up at the same time every day, regardless of how you feel. It could be dedicating a fixed amount of time to a skill, a meditation practice, or physical training. It could be removing toxic influences from your life and not looking back. Whatever it is, that act becomes your anchor, and from that anchor, your energy changes. You begin to radiate something different, something steady, something focused, something intentional. That is the energy that people respond to. That is what causes them to treat you differently, not because you ask them to, but because your actions speak for you.